where one of our teachers, in Medina asked a question, when do you start educating your child? And somebody said, when they're 7 years old. Somebody said when they're 10. Somebody said when they are, 14, 15.
When do you start?
When do you start teaching your child?
Okay.
Yeah, and cultivating your child and educating your child. So different students kind of like said different answers. I said, when the child is born. Yeah, and the teacher kind of looked at me and said, close but not correct. He was the only one who had the answer. Mm-hmm. And the answer was when you select your spouse.
Bismillah, welcome to another episode of The Bridge. Today we want to discuss a very important topic. A topic that hits the majority of homes, if not all the homes in the world, because it's about family, the necessity of family, the importance of family, and the breakdown of family, and hopefully the building of a good family. We want to discuss that, how to choose the right spouse, how it all kind of falls apart, how can we rebuild it if we can rebuild it, and the consequences of divorces, etc., etc. So it's obviously an important topic, and I'm sure it's a topic that you regularly go through, Sheikh. And so maybe let's try crack on with that topic. Marriage, family. What is, from your perspective, maybe let's start with that. What is your actual perspective on the Muslim society within our area for now? Mm-hmm. How does it look to you? Is it positive? Is it negative? What do you kind of see more than everything?
Yeah, interesting topic. I think very important to our work. What's our work? What's our work?
Bridging.
Yeah, bridging. And bridging mainly youngsters. Yeah. So we see problems that youngsters go through when there's a breakdown in a family. Mm-hmm. You often ask this question. Mm-hmm. Yeah. When we have a guest on The Bridge, what do you normally say? Mum and dad together?
Do you have mum and dad? Yeah.
You always kind of, because in the back of the mind is something was there that triggered you spiraling to, let's say road life, and then drugs, and then imprisonment and so on. So I can see when you do that where you're coming from, because the bulk of the work that we have to do with bridging, or with The Bridge and so on, especially behind the scenes, is youngsters who are, they haven't had the love, the attention of both parents and so on. So I think that's where the discussion is today in terms of, the Bridge podcast and so on. But saying this, crucial thing, spouse selection. Yeah, and I think I mentioned this before on the podcast, or possibly in the masjid, where one of our teachers, in Medina asked a question, when do you start educating your child? And somebody said, when they're 7 years old. Somebody said when they're 10. Somebody said when they are, 14, 15.
When do you start?
When do you start teaching your child?
Okay.
Yeah, and cultivating your child and educating your child. So different students kind of like said different answers. I said, when the child is born. Yeah, and the teacher kind of looked at me and said, close but not correct. He was the only one who had the answer. Mm-hmm. And the answer was when you select your spouse. That father will be the teacher. The mother will be the teacher. So it's not after the child is born or when the child is 7. You're actually thinking of, how is this person going to be with my child or my children beforehand? That shows us, look, the importance of spouse selection. The Messenger of Allah used the word. In Arabic, he said in the hadith, تَخَيَّرُوا لِنُطْفِكُمْ. Be selective for your sperm. You know what I mean? I mean, don't just marry anyone. Be very selective that who you're going to marry and who is going to give you those children from, and so on. So that, I think, is a crucial thing before we get to being parents, before we get to, supporting youngsters and so on. Selecting the right spouse. A key thing in that would be, what would you say in selecting that spouse?
A key thing is, are you sure you want to ask me, Sheikh?
Yes, go ahead. Why not?
A key thing in
selecting. You've been married for what, 13 years?
Flipping heck, mate.
Is it 13?
I don't count, Sheikh, no more after 10.
MashaAllah. You're not doing those, in the olden days when somebody's in prison to do the lines.
When they're coming out, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
1 month gone, 2 months gone. 3 months.
After 10 years, you probably stop counting, Sheikh. A key, what's the question, Sheikh?
Like, what are you looking for in a spouse, or what should a
See, now and then is different. So that's a key thing to start off with, Sheikh.
Okay, listen, this is not a counselling session. Yeah, I don't want a counselling session, yeah?
You started it, bro. It's a therapy session now, man. I need answers. And obviously now and then is different. So I'm going to speak from my knowledge of today, not based on when I was younger in my 20s, because I would have been listening to this trying to get information myself. So we're going to base it on trying to help you youngsters out there, even you elders that ain't married yet. That's another topic. Yeah, there might be some 40-year-old sheikh watching, ain't got no wife yet, so we need to help them out as well. Ain't nothing for the youth.
Listen, come to Abdul Latif and he will advise you.
And a key thing, I think we kind of spoke about this when we went on a trip the other day. I think I did kind of mention this. And a key one for me, and in the position I'm in life right now, would be know thyself. Know thyself, know yourself first. If you know yourself, then you know your boundaries, you understand who you are as a person, then you know also, hopefully, what is good for you. What is meant by this is from a young age, and this is also starting from parents. I'm really talking to hopefully parents. And if you haven't had that parenting, young man, young woman who can develop themselves from this point onwards. Know yourself, test yourself. What do I mean by test yourself? What is your level of courage? What is your level of patience? What is your level of perseverance, resilience? You will never know these kind of characteristics if you don't put yourself in positions to recognize yourself. Too many people live in the shadows of life. You live in comfortability. You live in, the shadows of not being seen. So you don't know how you can articulate yourself. You don't know if you're courageous. What is bravery? Bravery means someone who is fearful and overcomes that and does the things that they fear. That's all bravery means. So a lot of people are not brave because they don't know how to attack what they are afraid of. So when I talk about know yourself, it's really from a very young age. Testing yourself, putting yourself in positions to understand your capacity as a woman or as a man. That's the first thing. Because once you understand your capacity, you also know what works best with you. If you're a so-called impatient person, ideally you want a person who's patient. Do you get it? You're not going to want also someone impatient because that's just fire with fire. If you're a person who reads and is a bit more quiet, I'm a bit more, when I think about marriages, I'm a bit more on the yin and the yang. I think that works far more than what people say that you should look for someone who's exactly like you. Do you get it, Imam? And why I base it also to some degree on science. Why? What do we have in life, Sheikh? You went back to science. What do we have? We have positive, we have negative. And positive and negative work together to give you currency.
Mashallah.
Electric.
This is Abdul Latif talking from experience, brothers and sisters. Yeah, let's just carry on listening to him.
So after obviously knowing yourself,
I should say, preach, brother, preach, man.
I'm trying to preach, Sheikh. This is many years in the work. And after knowing yourself.
You haven't been listening to that guy. What's that guy who passed away?
Who? Oh, Kevin Samuels. The new Kevin Samuels is on the platforms. And after knowing yourself, I think you need to know what will work with you. And so by that, I mean, if you're a person who reads, yes, of course, it's nice to have a woman from a man's perspective that also reads. But you might want someone that's a bit opposite to you that takes you out of your reading and you go do something fun or whatever. I think yin and yang works rather than you're the same person. That's just my personal opinion. You can obviously add your one because you've been, mashallah, much more years in a marriage than I have. So that's my two for now, is that know yourself first. And secondly, choose someone that's slightly different to you, that brings about maybe a more fun side to you, that brings about a more thoughtful side of you, a more patient side of you, a more loving side of you that you can learn from. Because that's what it should really be about. Life is about experience to some degree. Find someone who can bring that out of you and you can also bring that out of them.
I think it's deep, mashallah. When you just said, look, know yourself. What did you say?
Know thyself. This is the old school talking, Sheikh.
That's it. I think deep and it's important. You know yourself, so then you know what you want and what suits you. And a lot of people don't know themselves as a start. If you don't know yourself, you're not even going to know what's good for you, what's bad for you, what's positive, what's negative, and so on. So I think, it's a crucial point for viewers, youngsters. elders to kind of like take into consideration. My point would be, let's say from an Islamic perspective, and that would be what the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam gave us in terms of his guidance, his teachings, his statements, his sunnah, and so on. And keep in mind that his statements and guidance and sunnah is coming from Allah Ta'ala, Allah Almighty, and so on, God Almighty. So what did he say? Look for deen. Look for good character. Yeah. What did he say in one statement? The Prophet said, people marry for different things. They marry, a man marries for different things. He marries a woman for beauty, for social status, for, what do you call it? Wealth. Beauty, but go for deen. At the end, he said, go for deen and you'll be successful. So meaning deen is going to be important.
But what, maybe, just again, I'm trying to think for maybe people watching, what's meant by deen?
Okay, Islam, religion, way of life. So a woman prays, a woman fasts, a woman reads the Quran, a woman knows the halal, a woman knows the haram, a woman knows her responsibility as a woman, as a wife, but knows the responsibility of her husband and his response as a father, meaning she has that knowledge and understanding. Yeah, of course, many other aspects. Yeah, it would include good character, yeah, noble character and so on. All of that would come under deen, because the word deen doesn't just mean religion in our tradition, it means a whole way of life. Yeah, crucial. Because if you don't understand, let's say, aspect of deen, of the way of Islam, is your Allah's rights over you. If a woman doesn't even understand Allah's rights, I've got to actually bow down and prostrate to my Creator. How is she going to understand the rights of her husband? If I can't give Allah's rights, then how am I going to give rights to my husband or my kids or my siblings or my parents and so on? Meaning that's going to be an essential part. But then, of course, character, good character. That's another angle that, to look into. Yeah, does she have good character? Does she speak well? Does she have modesty? Does she have morality and so on?
Some might ask, how are you going to do that when the Islamic way of getting to know someone is just sitting in front of them?
Good. I had a discussion earlier on with a sister. Her daughter wants to marry. And, she's kind of like maybe rushing it. I said, look, sister, no rush. They need to sit down, in a halal environment. So let's say they come to your house, they sit down in the living room. You're in the kitchen, you leave the door open. Sometimes you take part in those discussions. But they need to know one another. Your point, know yourself. Just something I can add. Each one needs to know themselves, but also they need to know one another. Very important. Yeah. So even the shortcomings in the deen that person might have. Well, I've got a weakness. I've got a shortcoming. I smoke, as an example. Fine, let the other person know. Yeah. It's a weakness. It's a shortcoming. But what often happens in marriage is people get married. I didn't know this about you. If I knew you were doing this and you had this shortcoming, I wouldn't have married you. Okay. Divorce has its own negative impact. So it shouldn't go to that stage if you already know one another and you've been upfront and transparent about everything. So yeah, and taking time. You met once, twice, 3 times, get married. No, it doesn't have to be like this. Talk for as much as it takes to get to know one another. So that's going to be kind of like important.
Why do you laughing?
Because you're looking at me like this, like...
I'm learning, Sheikh. This is I see this as a lesson. I'm taking notes. I'm taking notes. Some regrets. I'm joking. And I think, obviously, that works. My, I wouldn't say pushback. My 2 pence on top of that would be, you really know someone in marriage once you're married. I think there is a lot of facade today. There's a lot of facade today. There's a lot of, and if we go back to, if you really don't know yourself, then you're going to say a lot of things just to please the other person, just to get married.
But that's the ignorance, Abdul Latif.
Exactly.
That's the ignorance. Because then when you're coming out of that marriage and there's kids involved, it's a headache. And there are some brothers and sisters in marriages, they don't want to come out, not because they don't want to come out.
For the kids.
Because they're just saying to themselves, okay, I've got 2 kids now, you know what's going to happen? They've seen the negative impact of kids not having the father around. So they're just stuck in, but what's that word?
A hamster, like a...
No, like without any happiness. Yeah, without any happiness, I'm stuck. You got to avoid that. So education, take your time. Don't take those steps until you are ready, and be open. Yeah, just trying to show, this is a good side, but you got a negative side. Person needs to know.
But would you then say all of your negatives? Because again, this is my point. it is kind of a fine line. I think one thing that definitely needs to happen is a marriage course. Like serious marriage course about what marriage entails. Do you get it? Because we can do this conversation for 5 hours, Sheikh. I don't think we'll run out of words.
True.
So we kind of do have to skip through it, but because there's so many back and forth that we can do. All I'm saying in that though is, to maybe finalize on that particular topic, is that these people that we're trying to hopefully give some form of guidance and advice to, a lot of them from the beginning don't know themselves. They're lying to themselves. They get into a marriage, and then the consequences of that now is you're in a relationship, you just said that you're not happy about, but then you can't also then leave it because you got kids involved, and then those kids are going to be in a worse situation once you leave it. So it's really, you're in a rock and a hard place.
Yeah.
Had you just made that first decision in the first place to take your time, understand who you're trying to get married to. Maybe the third thing I would add to, what did we say so far? We said just to keep on top of things, know yourself. And then I said
Marriage, course on marriage.
that's the last one I said, but know yourself.
I mentioned about deen, and I mentioned about good character.
I think the third one I would add to that was, and I just had it in my mind, and it's kind of gone.
I would add something to it. Add something to it, which comes to another discussion, whether we'll have it on this discussion.
It's too many.
Like, there's so many topics, but I think it might have to be another podcast, which is about parents. Meaning parents educating their kids concerning marriage beforehand. This is what marriage is about, because and this might kind of like come across a bit harsh for a lot of youngsters. Married Muslim youngsters, marriage is what? I said it at Jummah, and people are upset because it was like a holiday, so kids were around. I said for a lot of youngsters, and the reason I say this, somebody might call, oh, I want to nikah tonight. Brother, why tonight?
It's about sex.
Halal sex. Yeah, you understand? That's it, desires. Okay, so, you married tonight, you've had your sex, then what? Desire's gone tomorrow. What are you going to say? End it, divorce it? And it does. But meaning parents educating beforehand. Now, because there's breakdown in families, or the dad's not around, the father's vision for his daughter is very different from mother's kind of like vision. That's where the wali comes in. The questions he will ask and what he's looking at is going to be very different from what a woman is looking at. But if the father is not even involved or not even around, already you've set up the person for a disaster or a problem or something negative and so on. But that's another discussion. But I think guidance from parents is very, very important. Yeah, that will help in terms of spouse selection and so on.
I think just on that point with regards to expectations, I think, and again, we're trying to keep it within the Islamic, Muslim realm, expectations have sadly also now come from movies though. I really do believe that. I think originally one would probably say it should come from the Islamic world and the Quran and the Hadith and things, blah, 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 blah. But because we live in a Western world now, and by default, environments have some form of effect on you. No one can deny that. No one can say, well, I live in the UK and I don't have any effect. No, you do. And most houses, when you have conversations, most of their narrative is going to come from movies, social media, something like that. So then the question becomes, what is the right expectations within a marriage? Because I'm also conscious that it's not, our way of life is not rigid. Meaning what works for one house doesn't necessarily have to work on another house. Like Islam is not one that's going to say, oh, all of you must wear this particular clothes for it to work, or all of you must go out and date nights 5 times a week and eat this food for it. Do you get it? Our deen is very wide and expansive. So are there some basic expectations within our way of life? And are there other things that are more fluid?
Key thing. One is the boundaries must be within Islam. You can't exceed those boundaries. Yeah, that's very important. The guidelines and the general guidance must be coming from Islam. Yes, Islam is kind of very broad, meaning, as long as you're within those boundaries, it's important. Yeah, but exceeding those boundaries, are you looking for someone now exceeding that boundary? That's where the problem lies. So as an example, a Muslim woman cannot marry a non-Muslim man at all. It's not regarded as a marriage. Now she decides to marry a non-Muslim man. Okay, that's past the boundary. Do you understand? So boundaries are going to be important. The other thing is, I think you've done a bit of research before. Yeah. And this is like UK statistics. 42% of marriages are ending up in divorce. Yeah. These are probably marriages that are registered marriages.
Yeah. So this ain't talking about partners that's been for like 20 years
exactly.
or 15.
Add partners to it. They've been living together for 10, 15, 20 years. And how many times that's, broken down, the numbers increase. Yeah. So, you know what? If we're looking at, let's say, what the industry has to show us, the movie industry, the Hollywood industry, the music industry, okay? Just look at the actors and the actresses. Every other day, okay, is a divorce, and from this one to that person and that person to that person and so on.
Yeah, and
just show you
probably like 5 years marriage together.
Yeah, and within those 5 years cheating and betrayal and so on. That cannot be the role model. Key thing, going back to that point maybe of understanding and knowledge, we have in our history role models and guidance. Marriage, specifically Prophet Muhammad, peace upon him. Looking at him and his spouses and his relationship. Why are we taking our expectations from those whose what's the word I'm looking for? Standards are very, very low. When you have someone that Allah Ta'ala has given you as a role model and his, spouse and even the companions, the standards are very high. Morality is very high. I always ask these youngsters, have you read? A lot of youngsters haven't even studied the seerah, biography of Prophet Muhammad, let alone Aisha Umm-al-Mu'minin, the wife of Prophet Muhammad, let alone Khadija, the wife of Prophet Muhammad, peace upon him, let alone the companions. Okay, once you've done that, maybe you want to go to Netflix and so on. But first, read this, study this, take your expectation from this. Then, okay, I'm sure things will change drastically, because in those expectations, Prophet Muhammad said, and this is once you are married, you're going to see shortcomings in your spouse because we are human beings. End of the day, Allah is perfect, everybody else is imperfect. You're going to see shortcomings in your spouse. But what did he say after that? Overlook them and look at the positives. Because there's also positives in that person. Telling us, okay, don't make your expectations too high. Be realistic and so on. So I think that's a key thing.
Maybe one angle, and what is a realistic expectation for a wife and a husband? Because we gotta be 50-50, homie. Yeah. What's a fair, realistic expectation of both man and a woman? That, again, I know this is not rigid, so this is just a fair expectation. So from my example, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Sheikh, and is...
But what examples, what experiences, brother?
Of course, his experience. A fair expectation would be that a man must work. It's a fair expectation. For a woman, a man should work. You should expect your man to work. A man's perspective for a woman now, or expectation for a woman. Why are you laughing? It's like, you know what I've realized, and this is how you know the system is turning on us. Is, and it's not by you laughing, Sheikh, but there is a bit of you laughing involved in that kind of like hesitancy to hear the woman's side, yeah? We have to be a bit more clear with women nowadays. And I think because of this, and that's what I said about the movies and all this kind of stuff, because the movies and these ideas of so-called liberalism and so-called feminism and all these isms that's involved, it's like a lot of men don't have the cojones to say some things that they expect that should be fair to expect. So the same way I just said right now, it's fairer for a woman to expect that a man should work. The opposite of that is what? The man doesn't work. What is he? He's a bum, according to even us. Forget the woman saying it. Man to man, you don't work, you're a bum. That's a fair expectation. But it seems like if you say a similar expectation for a woman, there's a hesitancy, there is a form of like oppressive, you can't tell what a woman can do and can't do, but you can tell a man what he can and can't do. Do you get it? So for me, a fair expectation, a very fair expectation is a woman should cook. The same way it's a fair expectation for a man to go and work. A similar expectation for me, a very simple one, is I expect my wife to cook. That's a fair expectation. So maybe you can add your own kind of fair expectations that it doesn't have to be rigid. I'm just saying what should be a fair expectation, because we don't want this to also become like a fairy tale. Everyone can just expect everything. There has to be some level of basics. And if you want to add more expectation, that's between you and your husband. But there should be some at least level playing ground that we can all agree upon to some degree.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of factors there, Akhi. A lot of factors, what you mentioned. I think important, but I want to take a step back. So we mentioned about, let's say, the movie industry, the actors, the actresses, social media, people are taking their expectations in relationships and marriage through what they see. And what they see and what they verbalize in terms of expectations is all to do with the dunya. Yeah? It might be looks. It might be clothing, appearance, physical attraction, and so on. So I think that needs to be challenged, even though the Prophet ﷺ did say, look at the person you're going to marry. There's got to be some level of attraction, but it shouldn't be just the only thing. And that's what social media, the movie industry, and so has done. Yeah, so that's kind of like something that came to my mind. The other thing is, I think you alluded to it, and you said, look, know yourself. What do I mean by this? The Sharia, of course, has boundaries. Within those boundaries, there's likes, dislikes. As a man, within those boundaries, you have certain expectations, and a woman would have expectations. If you know yourself, those expectations within the boundaries of some have to be articulated. The reason I say this, some fuqaha might say women don't have to cook. Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Fuqaha meaning what?
Fuqaha might legal, religious, juristic scholars of Islam. Yeah, and I think it might be the Maliki madhab, where, okay, it's not an obligation to cook. It's not a must to cook. They would say, look, if a husband wants food, either he cooks or he brings a servant in. Okay, so I'm saying, look, that's within our boundaries and within our tradition. Okay, so that's what I'm saying. Your first point that you mentioned, what do you say? Know yourself. That might be a big expectation for someone. Yeah,
and something to articulate before getting married.
100%. Look,
this is what I want.
Yeah, I, as a man, I'm going to be working. And I'm going to be working hard. And I'm going to make sure there's food on the table. And I'm going to make sure there's a roof over your head. And I'm going to make sure you're getting clothed. And I'm going to make sure the kids are being well looked after. So my expectation is within the boundaries of Islam. When I come home, I need a cooked meal. Articulate that beforehand. Okay?
Don't assume.
No, don't assume. That's where, because a woman might say, look, well, you know what? I don't see it as important. I don't see it as my obligation. If you really want that, you get somebody to cook for you. You understand? So I think that is important in her articulating herself. If she has certain expectations. Yes, your point though, there are certain things. For example, a man must be working. You are the breadwinner. You are the leader of the home. That's like a given. That needs to be done. The other side is, you could say, basic expectations from a husband seeking a spouse, that she must be praying 5 times a day. Yeah. I would even say, yeah, let's say, for example, some youngsters, not adults, but let's say they're in their teens, they pray, but they're praying because the parents are telling them to pray. They don't really want to pray. Another person is not praying but wants to pray. Yeah? Who's better? Believes it's an obligation. The one who believes in obligation. So I think finding that spouse that believes, I need to pray. I might fall short sometimes, but I must be praying. And if I fall short, I'm in sin. I'm in a problem. That mindset, that thinking, very important. Then, of course, yeah, those basics, like I said before, if she understands the rights of Allah Almighty, firstly, yeah, of God Almighty for our non-Muslim viewers, surely she's going to kind of like after that, think about, consider the rights of our husband, especially when there's going to be some sort of guidance given by Allah and His Messenger concerning the rights of the spouse and so on. Yeah.
Yeah, I think, but just to nail down some points would be, because look, not everyone, and they should be, is privy or understands their way of life to some degree. That's the sad part, first and foremost. So what you're trying to basically say is everyone should already be learned. But I'm telling you, the majority of human beings are not learned.
Yeah.
That's the sad part of this conversation.
What is Allah's first command?
Learn, Iqra, read.
Iqra. That's the first revelation. A nation that gave libraries to the world. A nation that had universities in Spain, from where people came from non-Muslim countries and learnt, took that knowledge, set up education centers and libraries in their countries. No. it should be a basic. You learn about your faith, you read about your faith, so you know. Otherwise, if there's nothing here, you're taking from elsewhere, and what's coming from elsewhere, it's not good.
And that's what we're in right now.
100%. And that's where the expectations then are coming from. The expectations are coming from, a woman wants who's a good actor now? Tom Hanks. Yeah.
That was 2000
my big age. So who's
2000 to today?
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm honest.
And a man is looking for who? Yeah. Taylor Swift or something like this. That's my kind of like type, or that's my type. No. You're taking it from what is being given and provided. And our topic is not social media. A lot of that's engineered though. That's another discussion. Engineered to kind of like give you role models which are not really worthy of being role models. And that's where we're taking our expectations from.
Maybe let me push it a little bit more though. In your years of now being an imam, in your years of dealing with marriages, etc., what are, from your experience and learned self, what would you say are some basic expectations that brothers and sisters should be looking at prior to marriage and should make clear? Like, I've made some of my ones clear, one of them anyway. There's many more if you want me to make them clear, Sheikh. But just from your understanding, some basics that you've seen both sides probably have issues about, and that they could have made clear in the beginning that should serve everyone. And it could be Muslims and non-Muslims, by the way, but both people can benefit from this.
I've got so many in my mind.
Just some, even five.
I would ask you a question. What are you seeking in a marriage?
What are you seeking?
You specifically.
Second, third, fourth? What are you talking about, Sheikh?
In, let's say, first. In marriage in general.
What are you seeking? You're seeking
you specifically.
Specifically?
Yeah.
The wife might be watching.
Doesn't matter. Yeah. Inshallah, you get what you're seeking from her, inshallah.
Inshallah. I mean. And what are you seeking? I think if you're...
Don't say you, say I.
Sheikh, it's really... And he said this isn't a therapy session. You're making this into a therapy session. I'm making it personal, Sheikh.
I'm using you to generalize afterwards, inshallah.
I'm not the general person, but I'm specific, homie. But me personally, and it's clear and adi, I don't think there's anything I hide. When I'm looking for a supportive, loving woman. I'm looking for a supportive, loving woman. Okay. In simple terms, obviously, I'm already basing it on the fact that she's a Muslim, that the basics of she prays, these are basics to me personally, should be a basic. Yeah. After that, I'm looking for someone who's supportive, and I give the same back. Yeah. So the vice versa is my 100%.
Point. And don't you see that in our tradition? So for example, Allah says in the Quran, He created you into spouses. وَجَعَلَ بَيْنَكُمْ مَوَدَّةً وَرَحْمَةً. And He placed love and mercy. Yeah. So meaning love and mercy you're looking for. And again, those are, what you call it, expectations that should be from both sides. The wife, the lady that's looking for a husband, the man that's looking for a wife, and so on. Support, very important. Look at the tradition, look at the life of Prophet Muhammad, peace upon him. Then al-Mu'minin Khadija support him, was with him when everybody turned against him. Yeah. And look, that movie industry doesn't give you those expectations at all.
Yeah.
They're looking at, okay, I'm not here to support. I'm to cut out. You did a little mistake. No. Yeah. Love is a love of fake love because it's betrayal and cheating and so on. Yeah. So what you mentioned, I would add respect. Yeah. How many husbands, complain about it's not being respected? Especially if a man is like doing everything as a husband, as a father figure, providing for the home, and then can't get a bit of respect. That kind of like destroys the man's kind of like ego and so on. And these are basics which we find in our tradition. Yeah, that's either the Quran or the Sunnah or the way of the Prophet Muhammad speaks about. Peace be upon him. Yeah.
So respect, love, mercy,
support. Yeah, understanding. Forgiveness.
But wouldn't you say these are hard things to kind of see on both sides before getting married? Because there are not going to be many situations where you can test that yet. Do you get it? You're only really going to test support, love, forgiveness, holding it down, all of these kind of things that we're saying now in a marriage. what would be telltale signs that these persons probably has it before that? One thing I would probably say is look at their family.
100%. Some scholars mention this. Look at the family. Because the family are the ones who cultivated this person. Now, that person's been with the family for 21, 22, 23 years. Is going to be affected. The family has, let's say, values which are problematic. That's going to have an impact. But one thing, like for example, somebody wanted to, a brother and a sister wanted to marry, and a parent was a bit concerned.
Brother and a sister meaning?
A Muslim brother and a Muslim sister, meaning they wanted to marry and so on.
Well, clarify that kind of stuff real quick.
Well done. You're on point, yeah.
Point to that, Sheikh. I don't want no comments underneath.
Alhamdulillah. So in terms of, the parents were saying, look, should we delay? Should we rush? We don't think they're ready. And I said, look, tell them to do certain things. Tell them to, for example, complete, let's say, I think they're in the last year of education, complete their education. Then for the guy to start employment. And if the guy says, no, I can't wait, I got to do it right now, that's not a good sign. As a man, you've got to be able to kind of like...
restrain yourself, patience.
Restrain. That would be a test to see if he is suitable or not. Saying this, the key thing there, never rush, akhi. Never rush. The biggest mistake and the biggest regret, but at the same time, the biggest positive is going to be whether you choose the right spouse or the wrong spouse. The right spouse can make it a form of Jannah on earth and a blessing, but the wrong spouse, because I see brothers like there's so much stress in the dunya, come home and then they come back and they say, look, bro, I can't take it. There's
punishment upon punishment.
Exactly. At least you want where in the home there's an environment of peace and happiness and goodness and that love, mercy and support that we kind of spoke about. But forgiveness is a key thing as well, because you're going to make mistakes. Overlooking shortcomings, that's going to be an expectation you should have, because we're human beings. So she's going to make a mistake, the husband's going to make a mistake. Fine, you know what? Do I overlook this? I should do, and so on. Yeah, so these are all factors.
I think that leads on to another question of, again, choosing the right spouse, as it seems like we're discussing in this topic, rather than all the other topics, subtopics that come under this. So moving with that theme, because you jumped on it, what would be so-called, nowadays they use the word red flags. What would be some red flags? What would be some telltale signs that someone is not the right person? So in the beginning of marriage, you're looking for a wife or a husband. What would be telltale signs from both sides that this person is right and this person isn't right?
Okay.
Because one of them you just said right now was patience, wasn't it, for the person? Something like that you said. That you told a person, wait, go to uni, finish uni, and then if he says, no, I want to get married, then that person, because he's rushing the process, wouldn't be either the right time or the right person to marry at that time, because of what he's showing right there and then is he hasn't got the ability to be patient. Yeah. That would be a sign.
Look, I think a lot of factors there, or a lot of red flags that a person needs to be careful of. And that's why, your thing about yin yang, not sure I totally agree with it. The reason I say this, a lot of times, semi-experience, in terms of the work at the masjid, people are sometimes, many brothers and sisters, Muslim brothers and sisters who do marry, are good on their deen. Praying, they're fasting, they're fulfilling their obligations, they're reading Quran, they're studying, but they're not happy because of a lack of compatibility. So they say, look, everything else is right. Even the work, the husband's working, providing, and he's praying, and he's not missing his salah, and she's praying, and she's wearing hijab, and she's reading Quran, and I'm reading Quran, and I'm doing my adhkar, and she's doing her adhkar, but we're not compatible, we're not happy. Meaning, you know what? You're just two different people. It's like, let's say you've got a friend. There'll be friends that you get along with. There's good brothers, good Muslim brothers, but you can't gel with them, bond with them, because you just don't see eye to eye. Yeah. So that compatibility is important. And if over time you've been talking and you see, well, you know what, there's a lack of compatibility, that's a red flag. Yeah, there is a hadith or statement of Prophet Muhammad in which he said, "Ankihu ala kiffa." Translates, marry those that are compatible with you or to you. So there is an Islamic kind of like guidelines to it. And I think that is also, and that has many factors. Some of the factors, the environment that you brought up in, that if you're brought up with somebody in London, you're going to have more in common with that person and compatibility, sense of humor, likes, dislikes, food tastes. Let's say, you're from Somalia. She's grown up in Somalia. She came here when she's 30 years old. And then you're marrying her, but you were brought up here. You might think, wait a minute, Somali, we should be more compatible. But then you realize, you know what? Actually, we're quite different. So that is something to consider and look into as a red flag. Compatibility, meaning not being compatible, that will be kind of like on the list anyway. Yeah, what do you think?
Well, my pushback would be, the Prophet ﷺ also married people that he did not even know their cultures. He didn't. Well, one of the examples, obviously, that the sister, was it Juwayriya?
Yeah. He married Juwayriya.
He married Juwayriya, but Juwayriya was an Arab.
Yeah.
She wasn't.
No, I think that's the thing. It's a difference because it's not about like ethnicity now.
But that's my point. Yeah. It's because look, when I talk about the yin and the yang, maybe let me state my position a bit more clearer. There will be foundations you agree upon.
Okay.
First and foremost, we're not talking about Christian and Muslim and, and I hate going out and you love staying in. Like, there will be certain foundations you agree upon. Okay. I'm a Muslim, you're a Muslim. I pray, you pray. We both want to get to Jannah. I want my kids to be, like, there's certain things you kind of agree on. But my position would be more, if you both agree on everything, it's a boring way of life. That would be my position. It's a boring way of life. But if we have difference...
I don't think so.
How?
No, I don't think so. One thing though, look, the Sahabas, they married.
Yeah.
They were Sahaba or different ethnicities. Bilal was Abyssinian. He married Abdurrahman Awf's sister. She was Quraysh, from the tribe of the Prophet ﷺ. Yeah. Zayd bin Haritha was an Arab. He married Ayman. She was also Abyssinian, Ethiopian, and so on.
So that would have been totally different cultures.
No, but upbringing was the same, isn't it? They've all kind of like brought up in the same society. So meaning, let's say it's a Somali brother marrying a Caribbean, Jamaican sister, or a white brother from London marrying, he's an English white brother marrying a sister who's of Jamaican parentage, or grandparents are from Jamaica. They would have more in common. Same for the Somali brother marrying, he's brought up here, he's marrying somebody that's brought up here but not Somalian, maybe Caribbean or English and so on. That's the point I was trying to make. But the other point now, look at it this way, because you mentioned about one is, I think earlier on, one is impatient, so the other one should be patient. No, they both should be patient. One is forgiving, maybe the other one, the yin and yang, the positive, negative. No, they both should be forgiving. One is positive, one is negative. They come together. Not really. That negative person is going to be, everything that you do, let's say you're a positive person, you bring the negative into it. Well, I've done this for you. No, there's the negative, but you've done it, but look what it resulted in. Because the sunnah is for you to be positive, everybody to be positive. Meaning, I think that side, my point anyway, that compatibility and agreeing on it.
For you, you think that there should be more compatibility than there is of different, I don't know, likes and dislikes of life.
100%. You like the same things, you dislike the same things. So imagine like you like walking in the park and the wife says, look, I don't like that. Okay, you're walking alone in the park. You like eating it out sometimes, once a week. The wife doesn't like it. Fine, you're eating alone. Or if she does it, she's doing something she dislikes. You say, let's watch a movie. Or you like, she dislikes it. Akhi, already, that's it. You're starting off on the wrong footing.
Yeah. I think maybe I'm a bit slightly different. For me, I look at it from the perspective of also of growth. From the perspective that, let's just say, I was raised in, the bushes, and someone comes from the West and he marries a sister from the bushes. Her world is more conservative. She hasn't seen certain things. She hasn't
She's from the
experienced.
bushes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
the
not
president-
rude way in the bushes. I just mean she's from the countryside.
Yeah, okay.
And he's from the city. Let's just keep it simple like that, yeah? So she understands the world of simplicity. You know, basic stuff. He understands the world of maybe going out, eating. Do you get my point? When these two people get together, yes, their foundations are the same. They're both Muslim. They both want blah, 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 blah. But growth comes because this woman can show him about other things, the simplicity of life, blah, blah, blah. He can show her, you know what? I don't know, going out to eat, wherever it is. So I'm not talking about it has to be negative, but from the perspective of growth and learning of different kinds. Because if you're the same people, and again, this is just all of us thinking out loud. If you're both the same people, where's your growth? Where's your growth in understanding about? Because if you don't have the same issues, if we have different issues,
Wife, listen, you know, we're in the city, we're going to the countryside just to see how the countryside people live. That's the growth. No, but I understand your point. But you know what?
have you seen more marriages basically long term that are more, say, everything's agreed upon than people who have a bit more difference?
100%. 100%. And more, I'm talking about from the Muslim perspective, because look, they're both kind of like trying to practice. But when they don't have compatibility, they find it a strain. And what happens with that is they'll say, been married for 10 years, husband's a good person. You know, the wife says that, the husband says the wife's a good person, but because we're not compatible, we're not happy. They find it a strain. Yeah, so either they say, look, we've got kids, let's be patient. Or they say, look, that's it, I can't take it. Yeah, but it's changed because now, with the age of social media, cheating, betraying, even people who pray, that's on the...
That's my point. This whole compatibility thing is also this kind of, it's easy to not be compatible sometimes as well. It's easier to not be compatible than it is to overlook, to grow, to get better. Then it's just to say, you know what, I'm just going to find someone who's exactly like me. I think that's a bit harder to find because I think the majority of the world, you find less like yourself than like yourself. You find it will take you longer to probably find someone who ticks all your boxes that you would say you agree with.
Abdul Latif, that's where you overlook. So let's say, okay, you got 20 boxes, 15 are ticked, 12 are ticked. That's majority. If you're looking for 20 out of 20, nah, that doesn't
I think that needed to be clarified because then someone might think everything has to be exactly the same. And if they don't, then we're going to have an issue with that one.
No. Unless you're some rigid, difficult person.
Yeah, I think obviously there are probably many red flags that we can go on. And this is a very massive topic. As you can see, we've gone hardly through anything and it's just one topic really. There's the divorce side of things. There's going to be the even staying in a relationship and what it takes to stay in a relationship.
What about, which the Prophet spoke about, ingratitude of wives specifically. He mentioned that. Yeah. One, how would you know somebody's got ungrateful character? Yeah, that's number one. Number two, okay, somebody's ungrateful. How are you supposed to deal with it? And is that a red flag that the husband, they say, does so much? This is very specific and it might come across to, you know, why women and Deen is balanced, but the Prophet and Allah is reality. The Prophet is addressing real issues because he's getting revelation from Allah Ta'ala. That this is a character flaw in a woman. But can a husband then deal with that character flaw? And how will he deal with that flaw? And if it's like a big issue for that person, because sometimes the man also now becomes so sensitive. The woman's upset, he's done so much, but now she's angry. Then he becomes so, what's the word? Feminine-like.
Emotional.
And emotional and can't accept a bit of ingratitude. Okay, that's a character flaw in that person now. A red flag. Akhi, you know what? Come on, fix up, mature up, man up. You don't have to be like that emotional like a woman, but that could be a red flag that needs to be explored. But there's so many that I think
you can't go through
we can't one. Kind of like just go through everything.
Yeah, I think we'll just due to time and obviously sometimes when you give too much information, not all of it is kept. So it's best that we probably it's best that we put this to a close on this particular topic. Any points that people have, any other adages or any other topics that people want discussed, put it underneath and we'll try to see if we can get to that. But as it stands with this one, we'll stop there. There are many, obviously, sub-categories we can deal with, and we'll inshallah try to deal with other categories. And with that, we'll finish with Jazakumullah khair. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.